Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast. And we're back here on the YouTube channel. I'm here with Chris Peterson, and my co host, as always, is Danny Gillette. We're from HuskerBigRed.com, and we've got a big news day here, kind of reacting to a lot of the stuff that's happened here over the last week. The biggest news, I think, for Nebraska football fans, Ajay Allen and Casey Thompson both entering the transfer portal. We had the NFL draft happening, but we'll just start with Danny. How are you doing this morning?
My Bruins, man, my Bruins have really kind of disappointed me, so I'm not doing so great this morning, but I am excited to be on here with you today, and we have a lot of things to cover, don't we?
Yeah, some big news dropping last night with AJ Allen hitting the transfer portal. That definitely, was a huge loss for the Cornhuskers. Casey Thompson also entered, earlier this week, which people kind of saw coming. But which loss is bigger to you, AJ Allen or Casey Thompson?
AJ Allen. I mean, I think he's such a dynamic running back and he's so shifty. And I understand we have people in the room. I understand that room is very deep, but in the Big Ten, you need to have several horses in the backfield. And I think AJ Allen would have been a really, really solid player for Nebraska here, and I wish him the best. I'm kind of you know interested that he stuck out this long, given that Brian Applewhite is no longer with the program. So, I mean, best of luck to him, and I'm excited to see wherever he goes because, a good team is going to get him.
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I thought it was weird. It just seemed I didn't know why he wasn't higher up on the depth chart in the spring, and hopefully that doesn't have something to do with it. But it seemed like he was getting limited attempts. So I don't know about that, but I mean, if I had my choice between him and Gabe Ervin, basically him and anybody, I would take AJ Allen. So it's
Yeah.
curious to me why he was not being, why he was so far down on the depth chart, in the spring, because I mean you look at it now. I'm as worried about running back as I am at quarterback because like who is the future starting running back on this team beyond this season? There isn't one. I mean,
No.
and you've got Emmett Johnson, who I mean he's got talent but hasn't done anything yet. Didn't look great during the spring. You've only got one incoming running back from the 2023 class, and Quentin Ives, who's a very low ranked. I mean he's got potential, sure, but there's a lot of concern I think about the running back room going forward, and they definitely need to pick up some guys in the 2024 class. And I mean I know that they're after Nathaniel Frazier, but that's that's really that they've got to get more guys than that. They've got to get two or three in this class, and they've got to get some 4 stars, like legitimate 4 stars. And yeah, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of running back I think definitely needs to be addressed, and because the future at the position right now is not looking very bright.
And we're after Nathaniel Frazier, and so is everybody else. So, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they, address the running back position. I will say I do feel a little bit better knowing that the staff can actually recruit, and as opposed to previous staffs. But AJ Allen, I think, was a massive hit, and I was really bummed out to see him go. I loved watching him, when he played last year, and I mean, man, Coach Rule talked about Gabe Ervin as somebody that's really stepped up, during spring and somebody that he really likes. And now Ervin is gonna have to go out and prove it. And he said, he is healing much better from his injuries than he was last season. So I think this is going to be a big year for Gabe Ervin. I really do. And, the talent is there. He just hasn't been able to put it all together, partly due to injuries. And so now he gets the spotlight on him to show what he can do. And, I think Nebraska's really going to have to not only rely on Gabe Ervin and Anthony Grant, but take the running back by committee approach. I still think there are very good running backs in the room this year, but I don't necessarily think that beyond Anthony Grant, there's a solid number 2 right now.
Yeah, I just, Gabe Ervin is interesting, because he always gets talked up, and then when he plays, he just doesn't do anything special. I mean, he wasn't special to me at all in the spring game, if I'm being honest. So I didn't really see why he was being the number one back. So I mean, hopefully he'll show that on the field. But I mean, when he started, when he started games, he's never really done a whole lot. So I mean, I've just constantly heard about how good Gabe Ervin is, but when he gets on the field, I mean, I need to actually see some production. I'm sick of seeing him, run for 3 yards a carry, like make some plays if you're going to be the number one back. And I mean, the same goes with Anthony Grant. But yeah, I don't know. I feel a lot worse about this running back room, frankly, because Ajay Allen just he could do things that nobody else in the room can do. He was explosive. He was a good receiver. So I think it's a big hit. I don't think that there is a way that you can replace what he could do. I'm not sure what happened this spring or why he was a little bit lower on the depth chart. I know he was just coming back from injury, but I definitely think that I don't know if there's anything that the coaching staff could have done, but this does hurt them going forward. And I mean, it definitely, they need to look at the portal, I think, for running backs. I mean, that's a position that needs to be added. I don't know if they're going to add anybody in the transfer portal with their scholarship situation the way it is, although I don't really worry about that type of thing. I think if you can add a good player, you do it, and then you kick a guy off the bottom of your roster. I mean, that's just the way that it goes.
And look, last year, it's hard for me to judge the running backs last year because we barely ran the football. And it seemed like whenever the running backs started to get hot, like Anthony Grant, we immediately threw 75 passes. So, I mean, there is not a lot of production to go off of from last year. I do think that the running back position needs to be addressed. I do think there is also, um, some hope given that Nebraska has recruited the state of Texas well, has recruited Florida pretty well, and I think they can get another running back. I'm just not sure if they can get, a quality running back. And what I mean by that is a four-star running back like you alluded to, and not some project player.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just they're going to have to, focus on that in the transfer portal. I mean, the 2024 recruiting class. I mean, things are cranking up pretty quickly, and I don't love where Nebraska stands in the 2024 class. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. Um, I mean, just looking at they did get a commitment from Ian Flint the last week, which was, I mean, that was solid, a solid 3-star tight end. But there's just, there's a lot of guys that have visited, but it doesn't, I could be wrong, but I just don't feel like Nebraska's gaining a lot of traction with, there's not a bunch of top targets where you're like, this guy's going to commit, in the next month or two. So I don't know. I mean, it's probably too early to get that worried about it, but I just don't think that, this 2024 class is going to kind of, it's not meeting the hype of the 24 hours type of thing. It's been, in terms of that, this class has not been very exciting. I'll just say that so far.
Well, people are playing the waiting game, and people want to see what this program and team is all about. And you've seen this staff; they can recruit, very quickly and turn a class around like that in a matter of weeks. I mean, look what they did with the 2023 class. So I'm not too worried yet. Recruits are playing the waiting game. And if it comes to November, even October, November, and we still have you know 5 commitments or 6 commitments in the class, then I would be a little worried. Right now, I'm not too worried. I think people just want to see what this program is all about, and we do have a solid base with a couple of players. Even in previous regimes, this was not a fruitful recruiting time for Nebraska. So I wouldn't necessarily worry about this yet until the season starts, because right now it's just a waiting game. And the fact that the staff was able to recruit 2023 so well, and get some new commitments in and sell the program, makes me think that they'll be able to do it, once the season starts, especially if the program starts winning.
So yeah, anyway, looking back to 2024, just talking about, future starters and guys like that. In case Jeff Sims, I'm hoping that he'll start here for 2 years. That's obviously, I think, the ideal plan. But I mean, just people have mentioned him in the Heisman talk. I mean, if he has like a great season and we win 9 games and he decides he wants to go pro, then all of a sudden you're I mean, I know the transfer portal's there and that's probably where Nebraska would go, but I just still think I mean, we lost 3 quarterbacks in a matter of days to the portal. So I do think it's important to try to get a quarterback every class. And yeah, we talked about Dante Reno, and I'm not sure why they haven't taken the step to make that up. The only thing I can think of is if they're trying to slow play the Raiola recruitment, like maybe trying to make him, wait until the fall until they can win some games or something. That maybe be
Which
their only
honestly is
chance.
smart. Yeah, I was going to say it might be their only chance to get him. I mean,
I just
But
don't know if that's going to work. I just have a hard time seeing a 5-star quarterback waiting that long. But I mean, maybe they can get him to. I don't know.
I mean, they probably could get him to because he's clearly having fun with this entire recruitment process while all fan bases suffer. So I mean, maybe they could let him draw it out a little bit. I mean, but I think I'm not against going to the transfer portal consistently for a quarterback only because you know what Sonny Dykes and TCU did in just 1 year time, kind of stress the fact that you can win now, you can win quickly, and you can get to the big stage. So I'm not exactly sure that I would be opposed to taking another transfer quarterback or something like that. I get the development portion of it, and maybe this is just the Nebraska PTSD fan in me that Richard Torres, Logan Smothers, guys like going back to Luke McCaffrey all the way back there. We just haven't been able to develop a quarterback. So if the transfer portal is our niche, so to speak, then honestly, I'm for it. I want to win games. I want solid quarterback play. It may not be orthodox, but I wouldn't mind, getting transfer portal quarterbacks at all.
See, I think they should look for a transfer portal quarterback right now. I mentioned this in
Yeah.
my article about Casey Thompson, but there's a kid from South Carolina, Braden Davis is his name, that was in the 2022 class, and he just hit the transfer portal like last week. He was a 3-star recruit according to the composite rankings, but I mean, he's a guy that 24/7 Sports talked about as having a potential NFL future and being a multi-year starter. Obviously, Marcus Satterfield has that connection with him. So, I mean, to me, that would make a lot of sense if you evaluate that kid and you think like, hey, he might have an opportunity. I would bring him in right now and let him compete with Harburg and Chuba Purdy and let them figure it out. But at least he would give you kind of a guy to develop this year because, I mean, I feel like at this point, Chuba Purdy is just gonna hang out until Matt Rule takes his scholarship away or he's a graduate, and then he can transfer somewhere else because he's just not ever gonna play at Nebraska unless it's like Sims and Harburg are both out with injury. I mean, unless there's a series of injuries, like Chuba Purdy is just never gonna play at Nebraska. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time until he leaves, in my opinion. And then probably it's just you go beyond this year, and I'm not saying that I'm worried at all about Torres or Smothers or whoever. I'm not. I'm glad that they left. I didn't want to waste a scholarship on them anymore because I'm not saying it's a waste. They just weren't ever going to play here. You know what I mean? So I feel like this would be a good opportunity. If Satterfield likes that quarterback, to go get him or get a quarterback in the portal that, you know, isn't a veteran, which I know isn't easy, especially, in this spring window. But there's some guys out there that were former 3 and 4 stars. And I think Nebraska should kick the tires and see if there's anybody there worth bringing aboard and like developing for a year behind Jeff Sims to maybe take over for him.
And like we said before, you don't have to have a 5-star quarterback all the
Yeah.
time.
No.
You only have to have good playmakers and, good situations and play calling to surround him with. I mean, you look at the Alabama quarterbacks, a guy like Mac Jones, or even, going way back, a guy like AJ McCarron, guys like that. They had great receivers, great running backs. They were able to raise their own stock while helping, Alabama win in the process. And I'm not saying we're going to be Alabama. I'm just saying that's an example of surrounding your quarterback with playmakers. And I think the staff can get playmakers. So I think if they bring in, you know, an above average quarterback, that could even help us win some games.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, and you don't need to, have a superstar. You just need to have somebody that can be, productive. I thought, I still think Daniel Kalen would be a great get, but I don't think that's going to probably happen. So, it is interesting we'll see how it all works out. And the hope is that, with Jeff Sims and I guess going back to Casey Thompson, we haven't really had this conversation a whole lot. We were kind of getting into it, but we've had technical difficulties, but I mean, Jeff Sims has never played a full season. I mean, the last 2 years he's played 15 games. I mean, so I'm not, I think he can be great, but he's got to stay healthy. I'm worried about the offensive line, and I am very worried about one Jeff Sims injury, and this quarterback room is exactly where it was last November when we could pick up a first down essentially against Minnesota, Wisconsin. For 3 weeks we could barely get a first down.
I think if Sims gets down, you go to Harburg, and Harburg offers a little bit with his legs.
I
So
agree. Yeah, I'm worried that it's going to be. I'm hoping that he can throw better than we saw. I do think he can. I think he's better than we saw in the spring game, and I do like his athleticism. And I think the coaching staff would be smart enough to actually utilize his skills, but it does concern me still.
yeah, like when you have a backup quarterback in the game, don't pass the ball 50,000 times a game. Actually run the football. I'm looking at you, Mark Whipple, in case you watch this. But no, I think, we still do need a quarterback. I would like to see what Harburg could do just for the heck of it. Chuba Purdy, I don't know. He's not gonna improve anytime soon, and it does worry me a little bit. I would hope to be able to, like you said, land a Rayola or Kalen, but truthfully, I just don't see it. I really don't see it. So I think we're probably gonna have to go to the transfer portal again, and you know, it's just tough because I was looking at some lists of names the other day. When's the last time that we've had a solid quarterback that has been able to consistently play for you know lengths and stretches? And yes, there was Adrian Martinez, but I mean, he never instilled any confidence in me. Let's. I'm just
I
being honest
mean,
here. I mean,
really, if you want to get, people get mad about me for saying this, but essentially, from the day that they, abandoned the day Eric Crouch graduated, they have not found a quality quarterback since. And that has been the issue for this program. You can't win if you have below, yes, if you're loaded, if you're Alabama or whatever, but if you're in Nebraska, like, you just don't have that talent and you needed a quarterback. And like Taylor Martinez was great. He had a lot of moments, but he never won any big games. And like beating Kansas State on the road on a Thursday night, I'm sorry, that's not a big game. Like, he couldn't beat Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Because he couldn't throw the ball. Like, when it came down to it, he could not throw the ball when it mattered. And teams that were quick that could match Nebraska athletically, like, he could run all over Missouri. But Oklahoma, Texas, the better teams, he got nowhere. He did nothing, and he got hurt. So it's like Tommy Armstrong was a solid quarterback. Jamal Lord was a solid quarterback. Those were, I'm not ripping on those guys in any way, shape, or form. Like, if I could have a Tommy Armstrong every single year, I would do it. But the fact they just haven't consistently found that since then. And Jamal Lord too. He had, one good season after, Eric Crouch left, had a 9-win season, but it's just, they've got to find some dynamic guys at that position. And I know it's tough, but they, this transition from like the option to, the pro style to, it seems like Nebraska for 2 decades has still been searching for an identity. Are we going to be like pro style? Are we
good
going to be
point.
like an option spread? Are we going to, it's like it just keeps shifting around. And so hopefully this coaching staff will stay and win enough so they can like establish an identity of like what Nebraska is going to look like going forward, because in some ways we still are kind of making that transition from the Solich era.
Just using Logan Smothers as a recent example. I mean, are you gonna put Logan Smothers in a pass first pocket offense? That's not his game. Are you gonna put Luke McCaffrey in a pass first pocket offense? That's not his game. Casey Thompson wouldn't. He's not an RPO type of quarterback. So it's like we've recruited quarterbacks and we've probably recruited some really good ones. We just haven't been able to reach their full potential because we've been switching the offensive identity so much, and that doesn't help anybody. So it's been a mess for quite a while. And yeah, there was like Armstrong, and a lot of people will say Martinez, but I mean, I don't know. It's just been like it's almost become let's just run the offense this year, hope it helps us and holds us over, and then let's switch again, and that helps nobody.
Yeah, it's been a lot of coaching changes and instability. So hopefully, Nebraska needs Matt Rule to coach here for like 10 years. That's what needs to happen. He needs to fix this thing. He needs to be Nebraska's Jim Harbaugh and get this thing going in the right direction. And then hopefully from there, the infrastructure will be in place. And when he's ready to move on, things can just keep, moving forward. So that's my long-term hope. I don't think Matt Rule is a miracle worker by any means. I'm not saying that he's going to get us back to being Tom Osborne. I just want to get back to winning 8 or 9 games every year. And I do think that with this 12-team playoff, I think it's reasonable to think Nebraska can be in that every few years. I don't think that that's like an unrealistic expectation.
No, it's more obtainable than ever now, I think, to get into the playoffs and what that would do just for recruiting alone. Hey, we're in the playoffs, the last 3 seasons. Come help us continue to build and be a part of something special. And it's not like, you know, it's 4 teams and you see, no path to a national championship when you have Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, blah blah blah. Anything can happen on any given Saturday, and the 12-team playoff, at least gives hope that you could potentially be in a national championship game, and that's a big incentive right there, especially if your program is on the rise.
Plus, man, if you're seeded 5 through 8, Nebraska would be host. I mean, that would be really cool to have a playoff game at
That'd be
Lincoln
so
Memorial
cool.
Stadium. So, I don't want to get into the playoff too much, but
Uh,
yeah, I'm excited about that. I do want to touch on the draft. We're coming up on the end of our time here because we were messing around with internet problems the whole time. But it was we did get 2 guys drafted. Just Trey Palmer, O'Shawn Mathis, both went in the 6th round. I still can't believe Trey Palmer lasted that long. But just what were your thoughts on the destinations of those couple of guys that got drafted?
If only Trey Palmer had Tom Brady, then I would feel a lot better about
Yeah.
him going to
Mm-hmm.
Tampa Bay. He missed out on Tom Brady by that much. And so Baker May speaking of miracle workers, I don't know if
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield
Baker.
is gonna make Trey Palmer a pro all-time Hall of Fame receiver, but I'm happy he got drafted. I am a little surprised he lasted that long. Supposedly there were concerns about, his drops, and truthfully, for as well as he played last year, we saw it. I remember
Yeah,
against
he had a few.
Minnesota, I think it was, and not to
Yeah,
rag
had a
on the
big
guy,
one.
but I could definitely see where the scouts were coming from with that. It wasn't just hyperbole. There were some drop issues, and then Mathis, I think he's going to an organization that has really prided itself on defense the past couple of years, so I think that's a great spot for him. And then there were some undrafted free agents too. Uh, Nelson went to the Dolphins. Nelson should have
Yep,
stayed in school.
I agree.
Uh, let's see. I think Vokalek went to Baltimore.
Baltimore. Yeah, I think he's got a shot there. I feel like at least I feel like Vokalek and Nelson are at least going to make practice squads this year.
Yeah, and so who else? Am I missing any?
Well, I mean, Adrian Martinez, not that he's a Husker anymore, but he did sign with the
The
Lions, and then
Lions. Yeah.
Caleb Tanner actually signed with the Jets. So I think he might, I think Caleb Tanner I think Nebraska, they just kind of moved him around. They weren't sure if he was like an edge or a linebacker. So, I mean, I think just going somewhere where he can kind of settle into a position will probably help him. But yeah, I do think actually that Mathis found a good home with the Rams. They are very good at developing rushers. And look, the guy, I'm not saying that O'Shawn Mathis is ever going to be a 3-down player in the NFL. He probably wasn't at Nebraska, but he can rush the passer. So I feel like he's one of those guys that, we might look at in a couple of years as like he just fits the NFL game better than college. You know what I mean? Like he
And there
can,
are guys that
yeah.
happens a lot more often than you think.
And shoot, I had a thought. Well, and Trey Palmer. I mean, with I feel like Trey Palmer, a part of it. He only had the one. He was kind of a 1-year wonder. I mean, before this year, his best year was like 300 yards. So I think that's part of it too. But he's not just a slot receiver. I mean, he's a return guy. He led college football in 70-yard receptions last year, and he didn't even have Casey Thompson for a lot of the season. I think he had 5 plays of over 60 yards. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, if Tom Brady was playing with him next year, I feel like he would make a good impact. But he kind of reminds me of that slot receiver for the Bucks, Godwin. I'm trying to think of his first name now that I'm blanking on it, but I feel like he could have a shot down the road because teams are gonna, maybe find him in the slot or outside and not realize like this guy
Scotty
runs
Miller.
4-3. Yeah, not Scotty Miller. He's like a Pro Bowler, like Chris Godwin, I think is his
Oh, oh,
name.
oh, oh, oh. Yeah,
You know,
Godwin. I was thinking of
like
like an
yeah,
actual
yeah.
slot receiver. Because
But yeah,
yeah.
he's kind of he kind of people he kind of started as that and as he merged much more and I feel like Trey Palmer could do that too where people are like trying to he's not just a slot receiver. He can do a lot of different things. So I feel like that was a good pick by the Bucks, but yeah, I do agree if he would have gone to a team like with a good quarterback, he could have made an earlier impact.
I'm just happy that they got drafted, to be honest with you, because I was just thinking like, how is Trey falling this far? And I think there were a lot of wide receivers in this draft. I think there was more than I gave it credit for. I always thought it was very top heavy, but I think hopefully the pro prospects will continue to rise under Matt Rule and in this program. And I do think there are a lot of guys. When I thought of potential pro prospects under Matt Rule. I mean, yes, it's early and he has a long way to go, but I immediately thought of Uma Malin. I think he's a really good rusher, and then you have a guy maybe Anthony Grant, and all at least a couple of the wide receivers will end up in the NFL. So I mean, I think this program is going to be well built for the NFL, and we'll have some guys that you know get drafted in the earlier rounds sooner rather than later. And just really quickly, what did you think of your Packers this weekend for the draft?
I liked who they picked. I actually, not that I'm a big, I don't want to talk up Iowa people, but I
Yeah,
like Lucas Van Ness. I think that he is a really good pass rusher, and I just don't, to be honest, I don't, I don't think it's a smart idea to take a number 2 wide receiver in the first round. So like people wanted Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like to me, that's a wasted pick of value. The Packers got Jaden Reed in the second round out of Michigan State, who I like. The Vikings took, Jordan Addison in the first round, which
that's
sure
a
he's
good
gonna
place for him. I think.
it's a good pick. He's a good player, but it's just they already got Justin Jefferson. So do you really need to waste a first round pick on a wide receiver as your number 2 when your offensive line isn't good, your defensive line isn't good, you have no cornerbacks? I just don't think receivers win games in the NFL. Like
No.
to be honest, if I was the Vikings, like going back knowing what I know now, knowing that Justin Jefferson is the absolute, like an all pro, if I had a straight up choice between Jordan Love and Justin Jefferson, I take Jordan Love 7 days a week and twice on Sunday,
What? That's crazy.
because wide receivers just don't have value. I mean, look at the Eagles traded a second round pick and got that dude from the Titans, and he's just as good as.
AJ Brown.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm saying because like if Jordan Love is good, he's 10 times more valuable than Justin Jefferson will ever be. On his best day, Justin Jefferson just
True.
isn't that valuable because yeah, I mean, it's like the Vikings they had Diggs and Thielen. I mean, they've had, like, for the last 20 years, they've had some of the best
That is
receiver
true.
duos in the
That
world
is
and
true. Yeah.
can't win shit. Whereas the
Kirk
Packers have,
Cousins is just.
yeah.
Yeah. I
And I mean,
mean,
look at the Patriots, though. I mean,
yeah.
how many first round receivers did Tom Brady ever play with before he went to Tampa Bay? None.
Yeah.
I mean, outside of Randy Moss, which
Yeah.
they traded,
Yeah. I
like
mean,
I just don't. I think if you have a good my thing is just if you have a good quarterback, like I'm saying you need good receivers, but I think you
yeah.
can find them. Like there's like the second and third round guys, I don't think are that much different. So that's just my opinion. I think
I,
receiver to me is like running back anymore. I just don't value it.
See, I feel the same way about the running back too, because especially you look at a guy like Todd Gurley. He had a couple of really great years with at the time St. Louis Rams, and then he completely kind of
Yeah.
fell off a little bit. But I liked what my Patriots did. I like that we got Christian Gonzalez at 17. I
Yeah,
like
I
that
did
we
too.
I like that we loaded up defensively. They weren't flashy names, but with Aaron Rodgers in the division, damn you, Green Bay Packers. I think we're gonna have our work cut out for us. But and then they took Keyshawn Butte from LSU in the 6th round, so he could be a high upside pick. You never know. He was really, really good at LSU, but there are concerns about his motor and his effort levels. So I think for a 6th round pick, that wasn't bad. And we had to get a kicker in the 4th round for some reason, so I hope he pans out. And Maryland kicker, whose name I forget right now, actually. So
Yeah,
a lot
he's
of
pretty good. He is pretty good though.
a lot of
So
Big Ten representation
I mean,
over
the
the
last
weekend.
time the Pats took a kicker in the 4th round, it worked out pretty good. Kostowski. So
Yeah. So I mean, you never know. And Nick Folk is getting older, so I think Nick Folk is going to be like 41 this year. So
yeah,
I mean,
he's getting up there.
I was happy with the Patriots draft, but even happier to see Nebraska names getting drafted. I just hope it's not towards the end in the coming years so much as, on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, hopefully it will start, coming more, at the beginning, and just seeing more guys that we didn't transfer in getting drafted would be nice to see as well.
That's the other thing too. There were 2
Yeah.
transfers that got drafted.
Yeah, we need to get some more homegrown recruited talent drafted, which I think we will. Matt Rule will get it there. And it's just the transfer portal moves have been tough, but the Huskers will be fine. I'll be watching to see if there's any movement in Nebraska's direction in the next couple of weeks, but we'll see. And for that, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're following the Husker Big Red YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our videos or podcasts. Get into the comment section, hit the like button, let us know what you think, and then check out huskerbigred.com for news and lots of analysis and updates on everything Husker sports related. So make sure you're hanging out with us for everything Nebraska, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.